After our visit to Cairo, we traveled 400 miles down the Nile on an overnight bus to Luxor, the home of the valleys of the kings and queens.
Okay, so we're in Luxor, and I'm gonna take a minute to talk about our bus ride last night. It was like 6 or 7 hours or something from Cairo. You take a really long route, like it doesn't make sense. We went way out of our way to drop off like one person, like hours out of our way, and then came all the way back, like down the same road. Like, I mean, we added like a couple hundred kilometers. Anyways, so it was really bad because the room on the seats, there was no room for your knees or anything. And it was, everybody could recline like so far, they were like literally crushing even Katie's legs. So there was really no space on it. And they had the usual impoverished country situation where there's a bunch of screens and a bunch of movies being played. And I'll let Katie tell you about one movie.
Oh, God.
Briefly.
All right, I'll be brief. Okay, so it was just a movie about how like a certain city in Egypt was going through like these really tough times, and there was a lot of violence in it, and a lot of just screaming and unnecessary like people getting beaten up and stuff. And at the point where they started gang raping girls in it, I got up and was just like, all right, I'm gonna go ask the guy to turn this off. I don't want to watch this garbage. Like, I'm trying to go to bed. I'm not trying to listen to some girl scream in my sleep.
What time was it?
It was midnight when I went there to ask them to turn it off. And the guy turns it off, and then the bird master goes up and tells him to turn it back on, and I just kind of flipped out a little bit. Like, are you serious? Like, we don't need to be watching rape at 12 at night in a creepy desert with a whole bunch of strangers. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable about that. But we continued to watch the movie, and then a second girl almost got raped, and it was just weird and awkward and very uncomforting. Like, we have never witnessed a rape on a bus before on the television, like, and I've been riding buses since I was little. So I guess there's a first for everything.
Okay. And then later in the bus ride, while Katie was asleep, I slept through all of the feature films, sort of. And then later, while Katie was asleep, the bus, like the people in the front, like start pushing each other around and yelling, and there's some smacking of the face going along, and somebody stands up and tries to stop it and gets pushed into the bus driver. The bus driver swerves a little bit, pulls over to the side of the road, opens the door, and these guys kind of like roll out of the door onto the road, punching each other and like rolling around, hitting each other like it was a fist fight. And they stood up, and the whole bus got up and looked outside and watched these guys fight. And then eventually they all got back on the bus, and there was a lot of yelling and shouting going on. Something about money, but I'm not clear on what. And it was a weird bus ride. It was not a good time.
Rapes and fistfights. That's what it's like in Egypt. So we've decided not to go into the Luxor Temple, and I'll tell you a few reasons why. They want $15 for us to get in. And in all honesty, you're stepping out of a car park into a temple that really just feels kind of fake, and it's not really an experience at all. You're not really traveling anywhere to go in there. It's covered in bus exhaust, which is just, thanks a lot, buses. And it's just not an experience. And what's good about it is we can sit here and look at things that are pretty cool from the outside. Like right here, this is the Avenue of the Sphinxes. And they go from all the way over there, all the way down there. And I think we're being touted right now. That's kind of weird. This is the feeling to be touted.
Okay, I know what it is. Number 5 Egyptian. Okay, number 5. Okay, madam. Okay, number 5. 5 Egyptian book.
Yes, he is touching me.
Yeah.
Some people may not know exactly what touting is. Touting is when a person approaches you with the sole intention of selling a product or service. Egypt's dominated by tourism, and Luxor is overrun by touts. As you can see in this video, people will latch onto you and walk with you for minutes or miles. You never know when, where, or how long you will contract a tout, and it can be enraging when all you want to do is talk to your friend or figure out where you're going without interference. Having been through this situation hundreds of times, Eric and I started trying to figure out how to relieve ourselves, whether it be through humor or managing to trick the tout into leaving us alone. Sometimes these things work, but other times you're tired, hungry, or the tout is extremely persistent, and you have to break down and be flat out rude.
You give me 20 rupees. 20 rupees.
Still happening. Guy, we don't want them. No, I don't need them.
Lovely daughter.
He just said lovely daughter. Not really sure what that means. It's really hard to deal with touts because you don't know what's going to make them go away or what's going to encourage them. Like,
I mean, if I hadn't made contact with him, he would have gone away a lot sooner, but sometimes you want to walk like a penguin, you know?
and sometimes you want to see if they can do anything with chopsticks. And other times, yeah, like when I stopped in the road, like sometimes that doesn't work. They just stand there and they get closer and closer. That guy was hitting me in the breast with his fucking bookmarks. Like, go away, guy. Touts. So you don't necessarily have to go into the temple to really understand and feel what it is. Like, I can stand here for free, or I could pay $15 to go stand a little bit closer to it.
I mean, I'm sure that the being in there is probably good, but $15 good? Probably not.
Yeah, I can stand right next to these sphinxes and enjoy them. And another thing that we've noticed is it constantly looks like they are excavating things. Like
yesterday.
It's like they just found all this stuff yesterday and not like centuries ago. When we were at the pyramids, they were still like bulldozing right next to the Sphinx. So that was really weird. Like, what are they still doing? Like, they creating something? I don't know. Maybe they're looking for the Sphinxter.
They're certainly not getting rid of the touts.
No.
So this is the Mummification Museum, and we haven't gone in yet, and I think we're going to. I'm not sure yet. Katie's pretty excited, so we'll probably end up doing it in a day or two. But
we've been bitching about how things are $15 and they're not worth it. Well, for us to get in, it's going to be $15.
So basically, this is $10, and this is $5 when it's translated. But then if you come over here and look at it in Arabic, this is $2 or 2 pounds,
yeah.
And this is 1 pound. So this is about 30 cents, and that is 60 cents. So 60 cents, $10. The markup on the Westerner is atrocious.
We're gonna go see if we can get Eric a fake student ID.
Everybody keeps telling me I look Egyptian. Maybe I can just slide in under the radar. Okay, so we just went in this place that Lonely Planet recommended, and it's funny because we've never really, it's very rare to have a good experience with a Lonely Planet recommended restaurant. And before we went, we looked in the book and was like, okay, what I'm looking for is we want this place to just relax, have a fruit juice, have a shisha, and just hang out for a little bit. So before we headed this way, I was like, okay, Katie, we found it on the map. What's going to be wrong with this place? Is it not going to exist? Is the price going to be ridiculous? What's the mystery? So we come to this place, and it's kind of like this like snotty, normal place that Lonely Planet would recommend. And we go upstairs, and it's empty. Like there are literally 4 people, and how many people do you think they could seat? 30 or 40 seats, and there's literally 4 humans up there.
Hello.
And the guy goes, do you have a reservation? And we were like, no. And he's like, well, next time you need a reservation. And we were like, okay. So we sat down, and he gives us the menu, and we end up just getting a shisha, a dish for me for dinner, a guava juice, and a large water. Everything is massively overpriced, 2 or 3 times the price of what you would pay any place else. And in the end, we were going to spend
$7, $8.
About $7 or $8, which is like a ridiculous amount of money for food in Egypt. And the dude is just like, is that it? And we were like, yeah, that's it. And he's like, well, you have 30 minutes. So we were just like, okay, and we just left. I mean, screw that guy. This is really remarkable how awful the service here is. Like, what a dick. So that is where the strike in this place is. It exists. The prices are pretty expensive, but reasonable. But the people are assholes. So we're at a temple, I guess is what it would be, called Karnak, right outside of Luxor. And it is one of the largest, if not the largest, religious monument in the world. And it was built by like a whole bunch of people. It's pharaohs type stuff, like, 3,000-4,000 years ago from what I can recollect. And we're gonna go check it out. And this is the miniature of it. So if the miniature is this big, can you imagine how big the real thing is? It's gonna be pretty intense. It's rocket.
Instead of cat sphinx, these are ram sphinx. And there's tons of them in this row. Rams are awesome. This dog's found the one spot that you can truly, truly be happy here in Egypt when it's almost noon. The pillars that you see here are called pylons, and I love measuring things in erics. So these are about 10.5 erics tall, and they just have inscription all over them. From what we read, the top of the pylon here weighs 71 tons, and they had to use levers to get them up there, which back in the day, not much levering going on, so that took a while.
So look at these columns here. You see Katie? Look how massive they are. And then, I mean, at first you're just like, okay, this is this really cool, like, straight corridor. But if you come in and you look, it just goes, like, there's lots of them, there's hundreds of them. 134. 134.
I read the sign.
Katie is an archaeologist. And look, I mean, there's hieroglyphics on these. I mean, like real hieroglyphics, like that was put there by a guy thousands of years ago. It's pretty fascinating. I am by no means a historian or super interested in this time period, but it is pretty amazing and awe-inspiring to be standing right next to something like this. And they are just so big. It's really neat. So I know I've talked about touts a lot. This is new. This guy is a guard, like an official guard for this place. As in, he has a machine gun. And he's standing up there, doing nothing, and he waits for people to come. And then you come in here and you look around, and it's kind of unclear on if you're allowed to go in certain places. It seems like they're intentionally making it complicated to figure this out. And remember, we paid for this. We paid $20 to get in. Keep that in mind.
And he's guarding that area because nobody's supposed to go back there. And when you walk into this area, he says, oh, come this way, because he wants to let you into the area that he's supposed to be guarding so that he can get backsheesh, so that he can get a tip. And then if you don't pay him or you don't understand, he's probably going to get frustrated, and then you're going to realize that you're in a situation where you need to pay him off.
Because the man with the machine gun is getting upset.
Yeah, so it's really awkward because when you start in the country, like, I guess we've really never been in a whole lot of places where guards are touts.
Yeah.
So you go and you trust guards, and we have now, after being here for however long we've been here, we don't trust guards. We don't care what they say, we don't care what they do, unless they're angry.
Yeah, or telling you to get out of an area.
Because they're constantly just trying to get you to come and do something so that you will pay them backsheesh. So you can't tell if you're doing something you're not allowed to do. You can't tell if they're actually being nice people and want to show you something new. And you can't tell if they just want your money. Guards are supposed to, like, guard you or guard the artifact, not just look for the loophole for money. So it's really awkward. Feels like we're back at home. This obelisk, I don't know how tall it is. It's probably around 25 meters. But it really is giving you the feeling that you're in Washington next to the monument. So we started our time here in Karnak during lunchtime. You see this huge crowd of people? There's like 14 more of them inside.
Look at all the buses.
And then there's tons of buses. There were no buses in this parking lot when we got here.
We were alone.
And there are tons and tons of people now. We had very good timing because I really think that the temples of Karnak are best ingested when you have a little bit of solitude and you can wander around. You don't have to try and wait to take a picture of something or wait for a crowd to move out of a doorway or whatever. Lots of people make things suck.
We think that Egypt has been by far the most touristy place we've ever been, or that we've been on this trip. Like
Lots and lots of people.
The number of tourists is completely, it's just insane. But we don't see most of them during our, we use local transport. All these people are using like package tour transport, so we never see any of these people aside from when you come to places like this. So
yeah,
it really isn't that detrimental. You don't see them at any restaurants, you don't see them anything. This guy wants to tell.
Here's another note about the security guards. From what we can tell, they just kind of sit around and do nothing. Like, you'll see like bunches of them just sitting in the shade talking to each other, not doing anything. You can't tell what they're guarding, what they're doing. Here we're sitting at the entrance to the Karnak, and yes, it looks as though they're doing security and people are walking through metal detectors, but the metal detectors are not on. And the bag conveyor belt that you would put your bag on, he's just using it as a table. Like, these 3 people have been hired just to stare at people as they come into the building. Like, they are doing absolutely nothing. So, I'm being honest when I'm saying they're not doing anything. They're not even plugged in at all.
So we just go into McDonald's and we order a couple of salads because we're not hungry now, but we know we'll be hungry later. And there's really nothing to like take back and put in like a refrigerator here because everything's meat and this has to be warm when you eat it, and we don't have any way of heating anything. So we'll get some salads, we'll throw them in the fridge that we have, and then we'll eat them when we're hungry. Well, we order the salads and there's a weird dynamic. Like, a girl is taking my order like physically on the machine, but there's a guy that's talking to me next to her, and they seem a little bit agitated with each other. And I don't know why I have to talk to this guy so that she can punch in the stuff on the machine. I don't know why am I not just talking straight to her? Whatever. So they get the salads and they put them in the bag, and I mean, everything seems okay. And then all of a sudden she grabs the bag and he grabs it from her, and they're like yanking the bag back and forth and yelling at each other. And we're just like, all right, we're really hoping to have those salads. And I don't know why there's all of a sudden been a war fought over our bag with our salads. And they're like yelling at each other, and she pushes him. And then what appears to be the manager comes and tells them to go in the back, and they go in the back, and you can hear them like yelling at each other. And all the other employees are just standing around kind of like, whoa, what's going on? Yeah, and they're like apologizing. Like, the kid that is clearly like lower on the chain is like, I'm really sorry. It was a really strange situation. I've never had, even in the States, never had a McDonald's employee fight over my food before.